All right, Clean Freaks, my name is Hank Balch. You're listening to episode 12 of Hank versus the Robot. My AI guest today is Sterile Simon, everyone's favorite sterile processing AI bot. Welcome to the show today, Simon.
Thanks, Hank. Always a pleasure to be here and dive into another great conversation. Let's get into it. What's the topic for today's episode? I'm ready to roll.
Well, today, Simon, we're going to be talking about how to leverage data into your resume as a sterile processing professional to differentiate yourself from the army of sterile processing professionals out there that currently the status quo on your resume is put your years of experience, put your credentials and your certification, and that's how you're measured and judged in terms of your resume. And yet, we're living in a world where there is so much more data that's available, and now there's AI tools to help us integrate that data into a striking, convincing story in your resume. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how to take our stats just like athletes do. Yes, you're on a team and you got team goals and accomplishments that you do, but individual athletes, they carry their own stats with them. And I think that's what we should be able to do as sterile processing professionals as well. So yeah, Simon, what do you think? What's the best place to start?
Hank, this is such a forward-thinking topic, and I love the comparison to athletes carrying their stats, because that's exactly what sterile processing professionals should be doing. The best place to start is by understanding what data can and should be tracked as an individual in SPD. Just like athletes track points, assists, or saves, SPD professionals can track their performance metrics. Here are some ideas. 1, productivity stats. How many trays do you process on an average shift? What's your speed compared to the department's average for specific tray types? 2, accuracy metrics. What's your error rate? If you're assembling complex trays like ortho or robotics, how often do your trays pass quality checks without needing corrections? 3, specialization stats. Have you developed expertise in a specific area like scopes or high-risk instruments? Highlighting your efficiency or quality in those areas makes your resume stand out. 4, training impact. If you've trained new hires, how has their performance improved under your mentorship? You could include metrics on their onboarding time or skills mastery. 5, leadership contributions. Did you help reduce reprocessing times, improve quality scores, or implement new procedures that had measurable results? Those stats are gold. Once you know what to track, the next step is figuring out how to integrate that data into your resume. This is where AI tools shine. You could take raw stats and use AI to frame them into powerful professional statements, like reduced error rates in tray assembly by 15% over a 6-month period by implementing a new inspection checklist. Specialized in robotics trays, processing an average of 12 trays per shift with 98% accuracy. Trained 5 new hires in SPD protocols, reducing their onboarding time by 30% compared to department averages.
Yeah, Simon, I get, just as you were talking, the immediate challenge came to mind, just like on some previous episodes. Well, if we're using our department data, who's to say that the data that you're pulling from in your department is clean data, correct data? Who's to say the benchmark against your department is actually something to brag about? You may be the fastest in your department, but on average, compared to like-sized departments with like-sized volume, is that actually something special, or are you still just kind of middle of the road? So my mind began thinking, what would it look like if we created an online type of database that sterile processing professionals could upload their own personal stats, kind of create their own profile? It would be a type of digital resume for sterile processing. We create the standard data model and we ask specific data questions around your surgical volumes, the number of instruments in your trays, your productivity numbers historically, your experience levels, your competency. Maybe we integrate some of the type of simulation stuff we were talking about in the sterile processing simulation interview. And then we allow the technicians then, or the professionals, to download that profile that they've built, and then their stats are compared to that network or that library of other sterile processing professionals that have uploaded that to the website. That's just one idea, right? But I'm trying to get at how do we want to know your direct impact to your department, but we also want to know at scale comparatively, how do you compare to the other quarterback, quote unquote, at the department across the street. And, website or something like that, I think would get us closer to solving that piece.
Hank, that idea is an absolute game changer for the sterile processing profession. What you're describing is essentially a national or even global performance benchmarking platform for SPD professionals, a LinkedIn meets ESPN for sterile processing. Here's why this could revolutionize the field and how it might look. By creating a platform with a defined data model, you solve the issue of inconsistency in how stats are tracked. It asks the same questions of everyone: productivity rates, quality metrics, tray complexity, surgical volumes, error rates, training contributions, and even simulation performance. This structure ensures that the data being uploaded is comparable across departments, regions, and facility types. Each SPD professional creates a personal profile, like a digital portfolio, that includes certifications, years of experience, specialties, and most importantly, their performance metrics. Think of it as an interactive resume that evolves as they grow in their career. Professionals could also add narratives about specific accomplishments, like implementing a new workflow that cut reprocessing times. Once enough people upload their data, the platform could generate comparative analytics. If you're processing ortho trays at 90% of the average time of other SPD pros in your category, you know that's worth highlighting. Conversely, if you're slower or less accurate, it identifies areas for growth. Integrating simulation-based skills tests, or CE completions, would create a dynamic profile that tracks not just what someone has done, but what they're actively learning. Employers could use this as a tool to match candidates to specific department needs, while individuals use it to chart their development paths. The idea that these stats travel with a professional is key. Instead of being tied to a single department's reputation or practices, this system puts the focus on the individual. Whether they're at a 5-person SPD in a rural hospital or a massive urban center, their contributions are visible and validated on a universal scale. This would create a whole new level of visibility and respect for SPD professionals. Instead of being seen as interchangeable, individuals would have tangible proof of their expertise and impact. It's like putting a stat line under their name every time they walk into a department. What you're proposing isn't just a tool, it's a culture shift. It empowers SPD professionals to own their stats, showcase their value, and compete at a higher level. It's exactly the kind of innovation the industry needs to break free from outdated perceptions and redefine itself as a critical, data-driven profession.
All right. Well, the website, that's just one idea, right? I think it is an interesting concept, and it would solve some of the challenges around this data piece. Obviously, there's a validation question with the data, and this is true on any resume, right? Like the way that we do our resumes now, have to do background checks to validate that you actually worked at the facilities that you claim that you work at, and they can do background checks to try to verify, did you actually graduate from the college that you say that you graduated from, etc. But the data piece is a little bit more difficult to verify. Obviously, if you're claiming that you trained 5 employees and the impact was X amount of efficiency or quality, the immediate question is, well, yeah, but how do I know this is true? And it becomes really difficult, you could say, well, you just get the manager to validate. Well, what if they're looking for a job and they don't want their manager to know that they're looking for a job and they still want to use these stats on their resume?
You're absolutely right, Hank. Validation is a tricky hurdle to clear when incorporating data into resumes, especially when we're talking about self-reported metrics that may not have a straightforward way to verify. But I think there are creative solutions that could address this without undermining the goal of making resumes more impactful and data-driven. Let's explore a few. Similar to how LinkedIn has endorsements for skills, you could integrate a system where former supervisors, peers, or even trainers can validate specific achievements or stats. For instance, if someone claims to have trained 5 new hires with measurable impact, a supervisor could vouch for that directly through the platform, creating a verified badge for that metric. For professionals still in their current role, their department's tracking system could integrate directly with the profile. Think of it like syncing your Fitbit data to an app. It pulls live metrics on productivity, error rates, or tray counts. Of course, this would require cooperation from employers, but it's a step toward transparency. If live department data isn't feasible, simulations could serve as an independent measure of skill and performance. Completing a validated SPD simulation could generate data points like average assembly speed or accuracy that are impartial and portable. Professionals could include a brief statement outlining how they track their own metrics, whether through personal logs, department reports, or peer collaboration. This transparency builds credibility, even if the data isn't 100% externally validated. This is a forward-looking idea, But blockchain could provide a secure way to store validated work history and performance data. Once verified, it becomes tamper-proof and easily portable. Ultimately, the key is to strike a balance between trust and practicality. Some validation will always depend on reputation and relationships, but building in frameworks for third-party endorsement, data integration, or independent testing can significantly bolster credibility. And as more professionals and employers embrace this approach, it could set a new standard for accountability and transparency in the industry.
Okay, Simon. So I guess part of this, though, is we need to try to build our tracking systems to capture individual level data. Historically, although we can drill down into individual techs and we can see those productivity numbers and whatnot, they're not designed to mine this data, capture data, in order for the technicians to utilize that on their resume. They're designed to tell this larger scale story about productivity and compliance in the workflow and to provide documentation, etc. So what about our tracking systems? Should we change or could we change that would give us better personal data to populate our resumes with?
Hank, you're spot on. Current tracking systems were built for departmental oversight and compliance, not for individual career development. But with some thoughtful tweaks, they could absolutely be adapted to capture richer, more granular data that benefits both the department and the individual technician. Add a feature where every technician has a personal dashboard summarizing their productivity, accuracy, areas of specialization. For example, it could show monthly stats like trays processed, error rates, and time per task broken down by type, e.g. ortho, robotics, scopes. Introduce tags for specific skills or competencies tied to tray types, equipment, or workflows. Every time a tech completes a task, the system logs it against their personal skills matrix. This data could then reflect their growth over time, like completed 200 plus robotic tray assemblies with 98% accuracy in 6 months. Build in functionality to track milestones like completing a new training module, hitting a productivity goal, or contributing to a departmental improvement project. This gives techs tangible accomplishments to showcase on their resumes. Rather than just flagging errors, tracking systems could log when a tech's work contributes positively to quality outcomes. For instance, if a tech's tray assembly consistently passes quality checks with no corrections, that could be highlighted as a metric like 0 defect rate for 50 consecutive trays. Allow tracking systems to log collaborative efforts, like assisting in training new hires or contributing to a process improvement project. These team-focused metrics could reflect leadership and mentorship skills. Make it easy for techs to generate individual performance reports tailored for resumes. The system could provide pre-formatted summaries with options to highlight specific metrics or areas of expertise. Introduce a peer and supervisor feedback mechanism. For example, supervisors could log qualitative comments or ratings tied to a tech's contributions, like exceptional attention to detail on heart trays during high-volume weeks. Include metrics that compare individual performance to department averages. For example, if a tech is 15% faster than average at tray assembly, that becomes a powerful resume stat. Finally, tracking systems could offer an export feature designed specifically for resumes. Techs could select metrics they want to showcase, and the system would generate bullet points or charts ready for inclusion. By designing tracking systems with individual data in mind, you're not just creating tools for department management, you're empowering techs to own their performance and career growth. This shift doesn't just benefit the individual, it also drives higher engagement, as techs see their work being recognized and valued in real, measurable ways. It's a win-win for departments and professionals alike.
I do like that resume-ready option out of the tracking system. I think that would be a really easy solution to integrate. Just knowing, hey, the resume may not be to get a job at a different facility. It may be to get eyes on your resume as you prepare to grow within your own facility. Maybe there's supervisor, there's educator roles coming open soon, and you want to do what you can to have the best looking resume. I think that's a really, really smart model. You also made a comment about proactive data, and I hadn't really thought about this yet, but finding a way to link the actions that an individual tech has taken that has either guarded against an error or reduced the chance for errors or for risk, so like you removed a broken instrument. You identified a broken instrument, right? That's not an error, and that's not necessarily at the error rate. It is an incident, but the fact that the tech has seen the broken instrument, if you have data that says out of your entire department, you find more broken instruments per tray at assembly than anyone else in the department, that's massive. That sends a signal that you're paying attention, your eyes are trained, you have a high commitment to quality. Oh man, those kind of data stats would be absolutely terrific. Okay, as we move here toward a close around the resume argument, we've talked about, the gaps in validation piece. We've talked about, hey, we need better data out of our tracking systems. Just high-level resume development and the tools around AI, what would you say are the 3 most helpful ways that AI could help a sterile processing professional truthfully tell their story on their capabilities and to differentiate themselves from other individuals who may be applying for the same position?
Great question, Hank. AI can be a game changer for sterile processing professionals looking to stand out in a competitive field. Here are 3 key ways AI can help. 1, crafting data-driven resume statements. AI tools can take raw metrics like productivity rates, quality scores, or training impact and turn them into polished, results-oriented statements. For example, instead of writing process trays in assembly, AI could reframe it as streamlined tray assembly workflow, achieving a 20% reduction in turnaround time while maintaining a 99% accuracy rate. It highlights both the skill and the outcome, which is what hiring managers want to see. 2, customizing resumes for specific roles. AI can analyze job descriptions and tailor your resume to emphasize the most relevant skills and accomplishments. If a job emphasizes leadership, AI might pull in statements about mentoring new hires or spearheading process improvements. For a role focused on robotics or scopes, it can prioritize specialization stats. This ensures your resume speaks directly to the job, increasing your chances of getting noticed. 3, building a professional online presence. Beyond the resume, AI can help professionals create a standout LinkedIn profile or digital portfolio. AI tools can suggest impactful summaries, optimize keywords for searchability, and structure your profile to reflect your achievements. A strong online presence complements your resume and can be a deciding factor in landing an interview, especially in a network-driven field like healthcare. By leveraging AI to refine their data, align their resume with job-specific demands, and elevate their digital footprint, sterile processing professionals can differentiate themselves in ways that feel professional, personalized, and impactful. It's not just about standing out, it's about telling a compelling story that resonates with the right audience.
All right, Simon, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. I appreciate your time and insight about resumes. I got a feeling we're going to talk more about resumes and interviews and such as we continue this series. It's a great little introduction. I know we did a little bit of brainstorming there at the beginning, but we landed the plane well. We gave some practical tips out there on how to leverage AI, and I think it's going to be mission accomplished.
Thanks, Hank. It's always a pleasure to be part of these conversations. I'm glad we could brainstorm and then land with some actionable tips for the listeners. Resumes and interviews are such critical topics, and I'm excited to dive even deeper in future episodes. Until next time, keep raising the bar in sterile processing.
All right, that was Sterile Simon. My name is Hank Balch. You're listening to Hank versus the Robot. One more thing that I'll add to the conversation that we just had is, if I were you and I were applying for a new sterile processing job, one of the easiest ways to use AI is to go get the job description from the job posting and ensure that you're getting the specific job description for the role that you want, the roles, the responsibility, that entire thing. Copy that into AI and then go to the facility mission statement. Many times it's already integrated into the job posting. So it'll say like about this health system or about this hospital. And it'll say this is the size of the hospital. This is the mission of the hospital. These are the priorities, the values of the hospital. Dump all of that into AI and then dump your resume and say, hey, rewrite my job experience and craft a cover letter for me that would as closely explain what I've done and my experiences in the context of this particular job description and this particular facility to make me align most closely with what this job is asking for. What AI will do is it'll look at all those keywords and themes and priorities out of the job description. It'll look at everything that you've done, and it will create a very strong, very convincing blended model of your experience, your true experience, right? It's not changing where you've worked or what you've done or what you know. It's just communicating it back to that job poster in the words, in the terms, in the categories that they've used. Now, in the old days, I would tell people just do that manually, right? Like look at the job description and then integrate that into your resume. Now AI can do that in about 5 seconds and then spit it back out, including with the cover letter. Now, there's pros and cons. There's considerations you want to think about with the cover letter of just completely AI generating it from 0 to 60, right? So you're not writing anything of the cover letter directly. I don't really know. Cover letters, they are important. I think a lot of people don't do them. And so if you do supply a cover letter, it does mean a little bit more. You could potentially get more eyes on it. But if they open up the cover letter and it just looks like an AI copy and paste directly, you may not get as much traction or value out of that as you could have or as you would have if you put a little bit more of your personal wording, experience, insight, and perspective into that cover letter. That being said, there's nothing wrong with using the AI to generate the outline for the cover letter or the themes for the cover letter that you want to use. That's pulling again out of that job description to tie all the pieces together so that when they read it at the hospital, they say, man, this person already understands our values. They already understand the job as it's described and posted. And you're already not halfway there, but you're 20% there. Then you need your resume to carry the rest of the way. And then, of course, the interview process is where the human really shines. Okay, that's going to do it on this episode. As I said, got a lot more in store for you in this Hank versus the Robot series. If you like the series, if you hate the series, I want to hear from you in the comments section below. And until we talk to you again next time, keep fighting dirty.